Hey everyone, welcome to Deep Developer YouTube channel. So in this video, we'll be understanding one of the major structural changes of Spring Boot 4, which is modularizing the Spring Boot applications. So as it is one of the major architectural changes, so we'll understand this with an help of two example. One, the same example I'll be creating with the Spring Boot 3 applications, and another example I will be creating with the Spring Boot 4 applications, and how it is differentiate between two versions. So we'll understand about the dependency structures, and we will understand like how much time it takes to run both the applications, uh, creating the same business scenarios in both the applications. Then we will understand the memory uses, then container size. So actually we will be creating, basically I will show a quick view. Actually we'll be creating a similar kind of application in the Spring Boot 3, and another is the Spring Boot 4, and we will be understanding the dependency graph. Then we will be understanding how much time it takes to run the applications having the same business logic. And next we will be understanding, we'll be creating the jar files, and and we will be understanding how what is the size of the file, and with the same versions. Version 3 it will be having different size, and with the version 4 it will be having the different size. So next we'll be understanding with an practical use case, like if you have Spring Boot 3 applications, and how you want to migrate to the Spring Boot 4. So we'll be taken a general use case or the general problem where and we'll be fixing that. So there is a one problem with regarding the H2 consoles. When someone wants to migrate from Spring Boot 3 to 4, they will be face this kind of issue. So I will also help you with an understanding how to migrate to the Spring Boot 4 application. So let's get started with the video. So before going ahead the video, I request you please subscribe to this channel, as I make videos on Java, Spring Boot, microservices, API development, and interview questions. And if you want me to make any specific video to any specific topic, and you can comment that on the comment sections. So if you did not watch that earlier two videos, so where I have explained you about the Spring Framework 7 features and the Spring Boot 4 features, and this is the third videos of that series where we'll be going into the deep understanding with the practical scenarios, that is modularizing the Spring Boot application. So let's first go a quick overview, like why the modularizing the code base is required. So if you go to this official documentations, they already mentioned, like if we use the Spring Boot 3.5, and there is in one artifact Spring Boot auto configure, so that size is actually 2 MB, and it contains lot of jars which is not required depending upon the applications or the depending on the project. If we are using any application, if we does not require those dependency, then why should add? So that particular features, which is the modularizing, is being improved in the Spring Boot 4. So they have mentioned that they have introduced that fundamental changes on how auto configuration are packaged, delivered, consumed, instead of single monolithic Spring Boot auto configure jar. Now they are splitting into a small fundamental modules. So how those modules will be look like, will be checking this at the end of the videos, and I will be demonstrating you how those modules are being restructures or being retransformed to the small sub module. So doing so, what we will be using, so if we see, if we instead of using the huge jar as we discussed, this Spring Boot auto configure, and if we use small jar, because these have like a lot of modules which is not required, doing that the size of the applications, the jar file will be decreased. So as we will be also seeing this within a few seconds. So the jar file will it will be got decreased. So next is Next is next point is if it will be having the architectural clarity. So we as a developer will be knowing each and every artifact use cases. So previously there are a lot of things and we are not being in used, but now the things changes and we'll be knowing each and every sub modules the use cases. Doing that, like if there is uh, any upgradations is done, then it is easier for a developer to upgrade that particular modules. Next is like migration to migrating to Spring Boot 4. I will be discussing in the end of this video. Let's take a quick example of Spring Boot 3 and the Spring Boot 4 and understand the size of the application, how much time it took for to run the same business logic on both the applications, and we'll be also creating a jar and we'll be understanding the size of the jar. So let's go to the Spring Start IO. So if we see that we already got this in this UI, we already got this 4.0 versions. So if you are still watching the video, I'll be requesting you please subscribe to the channel, and if you want to provide any feedback, you can mention those on the comment section. So, so this is the basic structure. So we'll be using 25 as a Java version and the properties files, and 3.5 we are using, and there is one second tab we'll be using 4 version, and with the same jar properties 25. So now let's understand. Add one dependency for example we want to make an RESTful API. So we usually use this Spring Web, right? So if we explode this, and we'll be seeing this Spring Boot starter web, this dependencies has been added. So let's go to the second step where we'll be using Spring Boot 4 version. Here also we'll be using web, so Spring Web. So explore it. So if you scroll down, you see this artifact structure has been changed. So now instead of Spring Boot Starter Web, they are using the Spring Boot Starter Web MVC. So this is one of the like structural changes, and if you go to this, there is documentation I will be provided. So they are mentioned like what are the main dependencies, test dependencies, and a lot of things are being added regarding the starter dependency, database dependency, web starter, client starter. So those are there. So this is one of the difference I just want to make. And also I will be adding one more dependency to understand it better, as we will be in the within a few minutes we will be understanding this migration of H2 in-memory database from Spring Boot 3 to Spring Boot 4. Let's understand that also. So in the Spring Boot 3 we use this H2 database, like it is in memory database. So if we see this H2 database, this is added, right? And we will be getting this console in the Spring Boot 3. That is fine. So if you add the same H2 and in memory database on the Spring Boot 4, this is the structure wise I am explaining. Next I will be zipping this project, and I will be opening the different IDE to understand the start time and dependency graph as well. So if you see in the Spring Boot 4, it have adding H2, it have this H2 database, that's fine dependency. Along with that, there is one H2 console has been added. So that was the things I was explaining. Like it is segregated into small sub module. So here we should specifically mention H2 console to access the console of H2 database. But in the previous Spring Boot 3, we don't need to add this particular dependency, because this is a new dependency only added in the Spring Boot 4. So we'll explore this more about. So as of now, I will be just I will be removing this H2, and here also H2, and I will be uh, zipping it, and I will be opening into the uh, IntelliJ. So I have already opened it, and let me go through this. So if we see this in this pom.xml file, we have the Spring Boot 3.5 versions, and there is another Spring Boot versions. There is a Spring Boot 4 version. Where it is? Just a minute. It is the version is the Spring Boot 4.0.1. So I have like run this in the locally to understand better. So if we go to this, if we see this is the Spring Boot 3. uh, if we run this Maven dependency tree, so there are a lot of dependency will become, which is not in use in our particular application. Because if we show you this application structures, I mean it's the same structure. So we just have one hello world controller, which is just returning the only one endpoints, nothing in the application.properties file. We just having this server.port. So to run this, for example, this is a small case, but it is useful to run this just particular this endpoint. A lot of unnecessary dependencies are being added, which is not in use, uh, which will be never being used. So in the Spring Boot 4, we are using the same structure. If we use this dependency tree, so there are few more dependency will not be added here because it is being modularized. And if we build this particular project, so if we build this, the two jar file has been as being generated. So if you want to understand, if you want to check the size of the jar file, because the business wise it is same logic we have put. So if you explore the jar file, so you see this Spring Boot 3. It's if I hover over it now, so it will be showing this 20,558 KB. It's around 20.5 MB. So same things if we check in the Spring Boot 4, same jar file, it is 19 MB. So a simple endpoints, there is a see there is 1.5 5 MB different. So think about if it is a microservice based application, the things logic are being increased a lot of time, are being size are being increased gradually. So that time it will be giving a lot of issue means the space will be increased, so billing will be also increased. So that things has been reduced in this Spring Boot 4. So that is the part of the modularization. Now take another example to understand. So I have run the same applications in the Spring Boot 3 and the Spring Boot 4 versions. So if we see this Spring Boot 3, it take around 5.39 second to run this application. So if we check the same, it take 4.6 second in the Spring Boot 4 application. So doing that, the start time of the application got reduced. So means the pods or the services will be up within few less millisecond as compared to the Spring Boot 3. So that is also one of the most like use cases or the practical implementation that was done in the Spring Boot 4. Now as we are talking like how we can migrate to this Spring Boot 3 to Spring Boot 4 versions. So we already know this how this H2 consoles is being set up in the Spring Boot 3. If you did not watch the video or don't have understanding, then you can watch Spring Boot H2 console setup in a Spring Boot applications from my playlist. So let's create a scenario. So for that I will be adding on Spring Boot starter. So this web is there, and I need to add one more dependency. So it is the H2 dependency, right? So I have like configured a little bit. So if we know this, I am using the Spring Boot 3. So we already had this H2 libraries for the H2 database and the JPA library. So this is the library, and we have configured this data source URL and H2 to be enable true. And we are using 3.5.9, and now we want to upgrade it to 4 versions. And if we see this H2, it is running on the console is running on H2 consoles. And if we like test these connections, so it will be working fine. The test is successfully, and we can get to the access of this H2 console. That is fine. But now we want to upgrade it to the Spring Boot 4. So go to this the Spring Boot start .io. So if we see, so first what we need to do. So first I will stop the application. Let me stop it. So I have stopped the applications, and so first we need to change this parent version, right? So let's take the parent version is 4.0.1. So let's go and update it 4.0.1. 4.0.1. Now version is updated. So other versions, it will be all this web version, and this is specifically no need to update because it will be fetching this 4.0.1. And as you seen this earlier, we have discussed. So if we use H2 database along with the some other thing will also come, which is that H2 console. So if we use this same H2 database, so let's make it like clear, understandable. So what I will do, I will first let me first remove all this. So let's explore it. So if we see along with this uh, H2 database, depict H2, this dependency is coming. So of course we need to add these dependencies in our Spring Boot 3, which is we have just trying to update. So we have update to see if it is Spring Boot 3 earlier there, we have update to 4. Now we will be pasting this particular H2 console dependency. And so now we have pasted it. Now we will reload the Maven, sync the Maven, and will be start the application. It's available in the H2 console slash H2 console. So go to this localhost 8080 slash H2 console. So now we can see this H2 console is being accessible. So like that you can uh, upgrade to 4 Spring Boot 4. So I will be providing this upgradation document as well, and if you face any issue you can comment down on the comment section. So this migration document is it is from the Spring only, so you can refer this documentations where they have provided all the libraries and deprecated starter and their corresponding replacement. So this one we already discussed, right? Spring Boot starter web, and it is instead now we are using Spring Boot starter web MVC. Yeah, so check out our next video where we'll be explaining the HTTP service client to make use of it in a better way, and the improvement in our Spring Boot 4 applications. So please subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching the video.